Hello everyone, our topic this week was requested by Javier Zaragoza and Ninjammer726. We'll be going over Ryu Hayabusa from the Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive games.
Okay, so first things first, Ryu has appeared in what we're breaking into 3 sets of games. His first appearances were in a series of Ninja Gaiden games from the 80s and 90s. He next appeared in the Dead or Alive series, also beginning in the 90s, and then in the newer Ninja Gaiden games that were released in the early 2000s. Much to our surprise, one day we'll learn not to assume any given topic is going to be quick and simple. It turns out that all of these games are canon to Ryu's story. In terms of timeline, some old Ninja Gaiden arcade games take place first, with the 2000s Ninja Gaiden games taking place next, followed by the main console 80s and 90s Ninja Gaidens, and finishing with the Dead or Alive games and Ninja Gaiden Z. Note that because some of the newest games take place before the oldest, there are some slight retcons that occur here and there, but the older games are still considered canon, and as such, where their stories don't conflict, we presume that that's how Ryu's life progressed. That's a lot of ground to cover, so here we go.
To better understand Ryu Hayabusa, we have to go over some brief world building. In ancient times, an evil creature known as Vigor came into being. He was the first Archfiend and the creature from whom all evil deities and fiends would eventually spawn. Fiends are the generic overall term for most supernatural creatures seen in the Ninja Gaiden games, including, but not limited to, monstrous, undead, or seemingly demonic creatures. Evil deities are basically just fiends of incredible power. Vigor was opposed and eventually slain by the 13 dragons, creatures of good. Vigor, however, was the original source of such emotions as hatred, and influenced the youngest and weakest of the dragons after his supposed death, turning that dragon's envy, being the weakest one, into jealousy, and finally into hatred.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Eventually corrupting it into the Dark Dragon, which rose, empowered by Vigor, and defeated the other 12 dragons, freeing the evil deities once more and plunging the world into chaos. However, the other 12 dragons played one final card after their defeat. Taking one of their fangs, the 12 dragons poured their very souls into the fang and gave it to a human warrior. It was forged into a blade and became known as the True Dragon Sword. All of these events had taken place over eons, and resultantly, both fiends and dragons had mingled with mankind. The human warrior in question was descended from man and dragon, and only those with this dragon lineage could wield the True Dragon Sword at full power. Using this weapon, the warriors slew the Dark Dragon and helped banish the evil deities once more. In the aftermath, the fiends, seeing the sword's power, forged the Dark Dragon Sword from the bones of the Dark Dragon in an attempt to create their own evil facsimile of the True Dragon Sword. This weapon would eventually come into the care of the dragon lineage warrior after defeating those fiends. Unable to destroy it, the warrior's descendants simply guarded it. In the modern day, these descendants are the Hayabusa ninja clan, with only Ryu Hayabusa and his father, Joe Hayabusa, carrying on the dragon lineage at the current time.
Ryu is a ninja, master of his art. In fact, on more than one occasion, he has been called the most powerful ninja in the world. He is presumably skilled in stealth and the like, but mostly what we see of his abilities are his incredible skills in combat. Like such characters as Dante, Ryu is master of seemingly any weapon, as he gains numerous weapons throughout his games and can utilize them to great effect immediately. Though his go-to weapon is the Dragon Sword, the ancestral weapon of the Hayabusa, the very same weapon that slew the Dark Dragon, most of the time it isn't at full power. As a gem, the Eye of the Dragon is usually separated from the sword. The blade is such a powerful weapon that when fully assembled, it affects the very fabric of reality. As such, the sword and the gem are separated unless its true power is called for. When assembled, it is referred to as the True Dragon Sword and is Ryu's mightiest weapon. Even without it though, he is skilled in unarmed combat as well, and can use Ninpo, which is basically magic, to perform a variety of effects, from calling down lightning to making random chunks of dirt float like a flying carpet. He can also actively regenerate his wounds, though that requires a certain degree of effort. He doesn't just naturally heal on his own. He's also in peak physical condition, some would argue at least slightly beyond what is possible for a normal human in fact, like Batman for example. Finally, Ryu possesses an iron will, able to focus under extreme pressure and even resist powerful magics and curses through sheer force of will. He isn't just a ruthless killing machine, though. While Ryu shows no mercy to his enemies, he cares greatly for his allies, easily befriends children, is a man of honor, and generally seems to be a calm, warm, and caring person in his personal life.
Ryu first comes onto the scene in 1999, battling the Cult of Nostradamus. For those who saw our Castlevania lore video this last week, this cult is based around the same Nostradamus mentioned in that video. That was a surprise. Apparently he was popular in the 90s. For those who haven't, Nostradamus was a real-life historical figure who wrote a whole bunch of prophecies. In the Ninja Gaiden games, one of his prophecies is taken to mean that the world is going to end, and so the Cult of Nostradamus, led by a man claiming to be the descendant of Nostradamus, who called himself Blade Adamus, sets about trying to ensure that this prophecy is fulfilled by bringing on Armageddon, starting by breaking prisoners out and flooding the streets with criminals. Ryu heads to the US, the cult's base of operations, and battles the cult's minions from San Francisco to Vegas, eventually killing Blade Adamus and putting a stop to the cult's world-ending plans. Later, a man calling himself Emperor Garuda would conquer New York City, for some reason, in just a single day. Ryu stepped up once again, battled his way through Garuda's forces, and slew the Emperor, quickly ending this potential threat to the world. We should note here that for the most part, Ryu seems to take the Naruto approach to ninja life, with less of an emphasis on stealth and more of a focus on mercilessly killing and skillfully butchering literally anything that tries to stop him from reaching his goal.
Next, we pick up with the 2004 Ninja Gaiden. Here, Ryu is found visiting his uncle Mirai, discussing the possibility of undergoing training at Mirai's hand. When Ayane, a ninja from the Dead or Alive games, currently working for Ryu's uncle, arrives to inform them that Ryu's village is ablaze. As a quick note, Ryu has a close relationship with Ayane, Kasumi, and Hayate from the Dead or Alive series, all of whom are ninjas from a different clan, with whom Ryu has maintained long-standing good relations. Back to the matter at hand, Ryu rushes off to his village, finding it overrun with fiends. Eventually, he makes his way to the clan's holy shrine, resting site of the Dark Dragon Sword. He arrives just in time to see a greater fiend named Doku kill the Shrine Maiden, Kureha, a childhood friend of Ryu's, and take the Dark Dragon Sword. Ryu stands to fight Doku, but is swiftly defeated and left for dead. It should be noted that it is unknown if Ryu nearly died here or actually fell and was revived through magical shenanigans, though considering his ability to will his wounds to regenerate, we presume that it was the former. Once Ryu had recovered, his uncle Mirai informed him that he had discovered the Doku was working for the Emperor of Vigur, a country named after the first Archfiend, and thus so obviously evil, we're not sure how it managed to avoid getting nuked off the face of the earth long before this.
Ryu traveled to Vigur and proceeded to butcher his way through the local military and scores of fiends. Along the way, he'd make some allies, learn some things, and get the chance to kill Doku. A few times, actually. Ryu would even be cursed into becoming a fiend, but, through sheer force of will, maintained his humanity rather than being transformed into an inhuman monster, something we'd seen happen to others early in the game. Before eventually catching up with the Emperor Vigur, who had intended to unleash the power of the Dark Dragon Sword, transforming himself into an insanely powerful fiend. Ryu slew the Emperor, and just when it seemed he had made good his escape, encountered his uncle Mirai, who it turned out had orchestrated much of the chaos that had occurred, specifically encouraging Ryu to murder his way through hordes of enemies, since death within a vaguely defined proximity of the Dark Dragon Sword empowered it, meaning that Ryu was partially responsible for some of the crazy that had occurred. With this reveal, Mirai took the Dark Dragon Sword and, vastly empowered, battled Ryu. Ryu, skill on his side, but also having long since awakened the true Dragon Sword, defeated his uncle, shattered the Dark Dragon Sword, something his ancestors had believed impossible, and then returned home, revealing only then that he can apparently fly, or teleport, or something, despite the fact that he took a blimp to get to Vigur in the first place. The game ends with him paying respects at the gravesite of his fallen friend Kureha, the Shrine Maiden.
6 months later, Ryu's village had been rebuilt, and Ryu had begun training Momiji in the way of the ninja. Momiji was Kureha's younger sister, and the current Shrine Maiden. However, in the wake of the recent attack on the village, it was decided that it would be best for the clan's Shrine Maiden to be more capable in combat, should similar problems arise in the future. Don't ask me why the ninja clan wasn't already doing this, but there we are. This turned out to be a good plan since the village was attacked once again. This time by an evil ninja clan known as the Black Spider Ninja, and some fiends with which the Black Spiders had allied themselves. With Ryu's help, the village was saved, the invaders slain, but Momiji had been captured. One of the Shrine Maiden's primary duties was guarding the Eye of the Dragon, the gem that fully empowers the dragon sword. The Black Spider clan, at the behest of a powerful fiend, intended to gather crystallized remnants of the Dark Dragon, which, when combined, would empower the bearer even more than the Dark Dragon sword had been able to. If they succeeded, the awakened True Dragon sword would be the only weapon capable of endangering their plans. So they grabbed Momiji in order to locate the Eye of the Dragon and remove the True Dragon sword from play before putting the rest of their plan in motion. It turned out that Momiji had been spiritually bonded with the Eye of the Dragon, meaning that since the Black Spider clan already had her, they had the gem, and could proceed with their plans. Which included manipulating Ryu into collecting the majority of the crystallized Dark Dragon pieces during his quest to locate and rescue Momiji.
Eventually, Ryu found the Black Spiders, the crystallized dragon bits fused, went wildly out of control, and instead of just empowering the fiend who had been pulling the strings, actually brought the Dark Dragon itself back to life. Things seemed dire, but Kureha's spirit returned from the beyond, and together she and Momiji pulled the Eye of the Dragon from her being and gave it to Ryu. Now wielding the True Dragon Sword, Ryu defeated the Dark Dragon, replicating the feat of their ancient ancestor, and, with Momiji in tow, returned home. 6 months after that, it's revealed that the Hayabusa clan's ancestral fiendish enemies included vampires. Ryu and his father Joe battle and defeat the Vampire Lord, with Joe taking significant injury, having jumped in the way of one of the vampire's attacks to protect his son. Almost immediately upon returning home, Ryu is informed that the Black Spiders have attacked Tokyo, and so, leaving his father to recover the village, Ryu sets out to investigate.
Once in Tokyo, Ryu meets up with a woman calling herself Sonia, real name Irene, a CIA agent who informs Ryu that the Black Spiders are attempting to awaken the Archfiend. Knowing that to do so they would require an artifact in the Hayabusa clan's care, Ryu heads back home in time to help thwart yet another attack on his village, once again by a combination of Black Spider ninja and fiends. Here, Ryu would meet and battle Kenshin, the greatest warrior of the Black Spider ninja clan, effectively Ryu's counterpart among the Black Spiders. This would be the first of several encounters for the two warriors. As the battle raged, the Black Spiders escaped with the artifact they'd come seeking. Still wounded from the battle with the Vampire Lord, Ryu's father took up the fight against Kenshin and sent Ryu off to recover the artifact.
Ryu's quest would take him all over the world, from New York to totally not Venice, to a flying Black Spider base, to Russia, and then the Amazon, before finally heading back to Japan for the final showdown. Here he fought Genshin for the final time, slaying the Black Spider ninja. With Genshin's dying breath, they exchanged words of warrior's respect, and Genshin even gave Ryu the Blade of the Archfiend, Genshin's weapon, and it would be revealed much later that the Blade of the Archfiend is essentially the True Dragon Sword's evil counterpart. Dual-wielding arguably the two most powerful blades in existence, Ryu then slew the Archfiend. Twice. Before making his way to the Black Spider graveyard and planting the Blade of the Archfiend in the dirt, sending Genshin's soul off with a respectful prayer.
Later, as they hold the British Prime Minister hostage, a terrorist organization called the Lords of Alchemy, hereafter referred to as the LOA, calls Ryu out, and so, at the behest of the Japanese government, Ryu heads out to try and save the Prime Minister. He arrives too late, with the LOA's field commander, the Regent of the Mask, killing the Prime Minister, and hitting Ryu with a curse called the Grip of Murder, which fused the dragon sword with Ryu's arm and inflicted him with pain brought on by the wrath and resentment of every creature ever slain with the dragon sword, including those slain by Ryu's predecessors. So thousands of years of death. In addition to intense pain and occasional blackouts brought on by the curse, it continues to grow as Ryu slays even more foes thereafter, because he has to. Left untreated, the curse will eventually spread to cover Ryu's entire body and end his life. Being without his ancestral blade, Hayate lends Ryu his sword for the time being, which Ryu gratefully uses for the majority of the game, tracking the LOA across the globe as they sow chaos and destruction in their wake. Until finally it is revealed that the LOA cursed Ryu in the first place in order to purify the dragon sword. Once the curse had almost entirely run its course, they pulled the blade free of Ryu's body, leaving the taint of the sins in Ryu's flesh, while the dragon sword was allowed to shine forth its true power, presumably even greater than what it had possessed before. Using Ryu's blood, an unfortunate child, and a combination of magic and science, the LOA then created a giant monster, armed it with the cleansed True Dragon Sword, and sent the monster off to ravage the world. In need of more power, Ryu returned to the Black Spider gravesite, retrieved the Blade of the Archfiend, since it was the True Dragon Sword's only equal, and after receiving its spiritual portion from the Ghost of Genshin, making it complete, he fought the monster, breaking both blades in the process. Ryu's original sword was somehow left in the aftermath, and he used it to free the child from the monster's body, killing it and ending the threat.
This brings us to the ye olde Ninja Gaiden games. The first ye olde Ninja Gaiden picks up with Ryu finding a letter from his father Joe, telling Ryu that he'd gone off on a mission that may end with his death, and that if Joe doesn't return, Ryu should seek a friend of his in the US to learn more. Heading to the States, Ryu once again encounters Sonya of the CIA, this time going by her real name, Irene. Together, they worked to uncover the mystery of what happened to his father, discovering that Joe had gotten tangled up in trying to prevent the revival of a fiendish evil deity. Working together with Irene and her CIA boss, Ryu tracks down Jakio, the mastermind behind the plot, only to find his father Joe under mind control. Forced to battle, Ryu frees Joe from Jakio's control. Enraged, Jakio attacks Ryu, but Joe takes the attack for his son once again, with Ryu slaying Jakio in the aftermath. Despite this, the fiendish evil deity was revived, but Ryu quickly slew it. However, the resulting death caused the building around them to begin to collapse. Joe, wounded so badly he was slowing Ryu and Irene down, ordered them to go on without him. Realizing that they'd all die if they tried to bring Joe with them, Ryu and Irene reluctantly agreed, with Joe dying as the structure collapsed, leaving Ryu as the last remaining heir of the dragon lineage, and sole being capable of wielding the dragon sword. Irene's boss orders her to kill Ryu in the aftermath, an order which she refuses, which looks really bad when later a doppelganger, assuming Ryu's likeness, attempts to assassinate Irene and frame Ryu for the crime, at the behest of Irene's boss, because it's really easy to assume the likeness of someone who is always in full ninja gear, like, all the time. This leads to a series of events culminating in Ryu and Irene being reunited, Irene's boss being killed, the doppelganger being slain, and the introduction of an interdimensional warship, followed by its subsequent destruction before it could be used to conquer the world. Lastly, in the ye olde verse, another fiendishly inclined ruler attempted to open a portal so that he could flood the world with fiends. Ryu stopped him, killed a revived Jakio, twice, but in the process, Irene died. By this point in the ye olde games, the two had developed a romantic relationship, and so Ryu was crushed by her death. However, thanks to the power of "because we said so," the dragon sword was able to return her to life, giving the couple a happy ending.
Which brings us to the Dead or Alive games, and the final chunk of Ryu's story. Ryu's best friend is Hayate, one of the DOA regulars, and by extension had become good friends with Kasume, Hayate's sister, the DOA series' main character. By the time the first DOA started, Kasumi and Hayate's uncle had rendered Hayate comatose and seemingly broken his spine. Kasumi resultantly set out to kill their uncle out of revenge, entering the Dead or Alive World Combat Championship for a chance to face him, as she knew he would be attending. Sometime prior to these series of events, Ryu had promised Hayate he would always look out for his sister, and so he entered the tournament as well in order to keep an eye on Kasumi, fighting his way through the ranks when needed until Kasumi and her uncle had their inevitable showdown. When things began to look dire, Ryu distracted the uncle, allowing Kasumi to land the finishing blow. However, in the aftermath, Kasumi was captured by a shadow group within the organization that ran the tournament in order to study her for experimentation.
As Ryu was investigating Kasumi's disappearance, he was also informed of a renegade Tengu, a mystical creature from another world that had escaped his own world after killing its leader and was now bent on sowing destruction and chaos here on Earth. This Tengu would end up being a part of the second tournament, and resultantly, Ryu joined the tournament again in order to face him and stop him from destroying everything, whilst also continuing to look for Kasumi. Eventually, he finds her locked in a secret lab and breaks her out, fighting a clone of Kasumi that was grown in the lab while doing so. Afterward, Ryu and Irene discover that, among other things, his friend Hayate had been fully healed thanks to this same group of shady scientists, and despite Ryu's protests, Kasumi left in search of her brother. Ryu left their fate in hands he trusted and then set out to handle the Tengu issue, at first trying to convince other fighters in the tournament to leave considering the danger the Tengu posed. Ryu soon realized, though, that no one would listen, and so he set about knocking every other contestant out of the tournament for their own protection until he was allowed to face and defeat the Tengu, ending the threat the creature posed to the world. During this process, he'd met Hayate in the tournament, who was suffering from amnesia, and by the end of the game, Ryu, Kasumi, and Ayane helped Hayate regain his memories. By the time the next tournament begins, Ryu entered the tournament once again, and Ryu and Hayate even go into an all-out fight to see who was the better ninja. The fight was interrupted, however, when it is revealed that Ayane's foster father, corrupted by the aforementioned evil scientists, abducted Irene. Ryu ran off to save her, eventually realizing the abduction was a distraction, and returned in time to help Hayate and Ayane defeat her corrupted stepdad.
By this point, Hayate and company had had enough of these evil scientists' antics and mounted an offensive, with Ryu coming to their aid. They destroyed a major cloning facility, putting an end to the program at its then current stage, and as the events drew to a close, encouraged Kasumi to battle the super clone that had been made in her image, as he considered it to be her fight. Later, Ryu lectures Hayate regarding the burdens of leadership, as Hayate had by that point been made leader of his clan. Continuing his lecturing ways later on another scientist when he discovers that the cloning programs they'd thought shut down were continuing. This culminates in Ryu, Hayate, Kasumi, and Ayane facing the ultimate clone from the project in a battle, eventually defeating it and, at least for the time being, ending the threat the evil scientists had created. Ryu's last adventure revolved around a zombie outbreak and an enemy ninja who he killed several times, only to have his foe brought back as a cyborg time and again. Eventually, Ryu and Momiji discovered a cure for the zombie plague, and the cyborg even helped put an end to the source of the problem. That game ends with the cyborg and his partner planning to let the zombie outbreak fester a bit so they can make bank on the cure, while Ryu watches them from afar. His next plans left unclear, though in keeping with his character, if he finds out, the cyborg and his partner may not have long to live.
And that's basically Ryu Hayabusa, the dragon ninja of the Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive games. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like, and maybe share it with a friend you think might like it. If you have ideas for more videos in the future, do like Javier Zaragoza and Ninjammer726, and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore or let's play, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like it, hit this subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, go to the link on the left.
And for a video chosen by the gods of YouTube from our channel, hit that link on top.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.